Hey everyone, welcome back to Road Atlanta for the season opener of 2019. We've entered the F1600 Championship Series again this season, and barring any unexpected incidents like when our differential blew up last year, we're going to be running the full schedule again this year, including the non-championship race at Montreal. So I'm really looking forward to that one. There's quite a few new things this year that I'll get into a little bit later, but for now let's take a look at the starting order. The qualifying was rained out, so they combined the practice 1 and practice 2 times and took our best time from either session. So if you didn't improve your time in practice 2, which I think is the case for most people, then they took your practice 1 time. Up front we have a bunch of new names and some familiar names around us, with Christian Laudas starting to our right and Ryan Bjork will be right behind us. As you can see, it's raining, which is going to change the track dramatically. The S's from turn 3 to turn 5 are usually flat out, but with water crossing the track at the bottom of the valley, we're going to have to be a lot more careful. Turns 6 and 7 are probably the least wet on the track, although we're still going to have to be careful getting on the power exiting the slow turn 7. One of the most fun things about racing a car in the rain is that even a Formula 1600 car can feel like it has the power of an 80s turbo F1 car. That's really cool. Going into 10A and B, we're going to have to be especially careful again because we're still going to be getting up to around 130 miles an hour. And especially if you're following another car, you won't be able to see anything except sort of out the side, the very edges of your field of vision. Turn 12 is also going to be especially treacherous since we're still carrying a lot of speed. If you hit any of the paint on the curbs, or if there's a stream crossing the track that you don't see, or you just carry a little bit too much speed into it, then you're going to easily end up in the wall. There's also a concrete patch there that it takes me a while to find out, or to figure out eventually, that there's not a lot of grip on it. And it's right on the racing line, or right on the line that you want to take. So you're going to have to alter your way of thinking around that. So that's the track, that's where we're starting, and let's get ready to take the green. So as we come up through 10B, the green flag is waiting for us right on the other side of this hill. And you can see the red lights on the back of the cars in front of me. Those are the rain lights that we're required to run when conditions are like this, and I forgot to turn mine on. So you'll see as we get to the bottom of the hill that I'm going to frantically be flicking switches to try and turn the rain light on, and I accidentally turn the fuel pump and the ignition off, so I get an absolutely horrible start. Even though nobody's really going all that fast, we're all still trying to feel out the conditions. I didn't quite go back to last place, but I think there's maybe 1 or 2 cars behind me. So now we're, like I said, we're all just trying to feel out the conditions. Nobody wants to go too fast and risk sliding off the track, but of course if we go too slow then we're going to get overtaken. So I'm sort of using the cars in front of me as a guide to see how fast I can go, even though I know the guys at the front are taking it a little bit more aggressively. And like I said in the intro, there's a stream at the bottom of the hill here, and you can see Mike Scanlon slide off the track to the left. I think either he got caught up by the stream or maybe he just put a wheel on the painted curbs, which is really easy to do, especially when the track is winding around like that. And if you just get one wheel on, then you're pretty much done. So when you see something like that, your next thought is, okay, they're probably going to throw a full course yellow. So I'm looking at each flag station to see if they throw it. But until they do, then it's fair game. You know, I want to get around these guys as fast as I can because they're probably going to throw full course yellow, and any cars that I get in front of now, I won't have to try to pass when we go back to green. So I haven't seen the full course yellow yet. I'm staying out of this guy's draft because if I get behind him, then I won't be able to see anything at all. As I cross over to the left, you can get an idea of how little or how drastically the visibility drops when you're behind another car. We'll see it again later. And when you're in the car, it's even worse. I think the camera makes it a bit easier to see than in real life. We're going nice and slow into 10A. They still haven't thrown the full course yellow yet. Taking it gingerly, accelerating out. Now going into 12 in racing conditions. This is going to be treacherous. Take it a little bit slow. They still haven't thrown the full course yellow, so I'm not sure what they're waiting for, but we've got to keep trying to hunt down these cars until they do. Going into turn 1 there, you can see the full course yellow. from the flag stand in turn 1. Now we can back off a little bit, and one of the major differences of driving in the wet is that your mind has to constantly be active. We got 1 lap to view the circuit before the start of the race, and now we're going to have a couple laps under yellow to see, where the puddles are, where the streams are crossing the track. If there's, maybe there's a time, maybe there's more grip on the outside of the track, especially here in turn 5. I think a couple times later on I'll try sort of the rain line to stay off of the racing line where there's rubber, which is where you want to be on the dry, of course, but in the wet, the rubber and the water sort of conflict with each other, and they take away a lot of grip. So now we're just catching the field. This is a good time, I think, to talk about some of the things that are new this year. I think the biggest new thing that we've done over the off-season is we actually put a new engine in the car. It's brand new, straight from the factory to the engine builder to us. So I think we should have a little bit more power. Not a lot, but with these engines, they only make 114 horsepower. So any little bit you can have, any little bit of extra efficiency or power that you get is going to pay dividends. And I think one of the really interesting indicators that I think this engine is much better is that last year, after every session, the exhaust would leave a little bit of soot on not a little bit, a lot of soot on the gearbox, which is right at the exit of the exhaust. And so far, with our experience with this engine, it leaves a lot less. So I think, not that I'm an expert, but I think that indicates that this engine is burning more cleanly and more efficiently. So hopefully that translates into creating more power. Another thing that we've done new for this year is over the off-season we got a setup pad and scales. So we're actually going to be able to measure things like cross weight, corner weights, camber, caster, all of those things. So we've done a little bit to prepare for this race, and it's something that we're going to be experimenting with and learning about as we go through the season. So I think it's just going to make us more and more competitive as we go. And then a couple things that you guys can probably already see is that we have working brake and throttle traces. The brake one I have so that it's pretty much, it's not entirely accurate. It's pretty much just on or off. You can't really trust the analog part of it because I have it set so that because I don't want to give away too much. I want you guys to know when I'm on the brake, but the modulation of it I kind of want to keep to myself a little bit. The throttle trace, or the throttle indicator, is working, and I have both miles an hour and kilometers per hour. No matter which one I use, someone's going to complain that I'm not using the one that they prefer, so I just thought, well, why not put them both up there? And then another thing is that the gear indicator is actually working, and it's actually accurate. I realized I was playing around with the AIM, the documentation for the data logger, and I realized that you actually have to calibrate it for each track that you go to, because it calculates speed and RPM with other things, and it actually calculates the gear position. So there's no actual sensor in the gearbox that tells the computer what position it's in. It's purely mathematical, and it's once you get it calculated correctly, it's actually fairly accurate. Not that I look at it when I'm in the car, because it is an H pattern, so I just use the physical position of the gear lever to tell me which gear it's in. So I think that's pretty much all that's new for this season. Obviously, hopefully the engine is going to be our biggest sort of off the bat improvement, but the setup pad and the scales are going to help us as we go and as we learn how to use them. I like to say that since I'm running this car with my dad and myself, and I have a lot of friends in the industry that are very experienced, and they've been sharing some of their wisdom as we're going. So I like to say that we have no idea what we're doing, but we have the tools to do it. So hopefully the first part of that we'll keep learning as the season goes, and hopefully get better and better. So I think this full course yellow is going to last for a couple more laps, and we'll just cut to the end and hopefully we can have a better restart and start picking off these cars and get back up to where we belong, towards the front. Coming out of 10B here to take the green flag, hopefully get a better restart than before. It's a little bit tricky here because you have to keep an eye on the car in front and the green flag, which is way out of the way. And you can see one of the cars gets a terrible start, and I get a terrible start as well. But again, we're just trying to take it nice and easy. I'm not sure who that is. I know it's the Britain West car, Canadian team that came down for this event. Not sure if they're doing the whole season or not, but we're taking it gingerly. I think we lost a spot on the restart, which is not great. But I think we'll feel confident. I feel confident that we'll get them back. And these guys are taking it nice and gingerly. The double pass into turn 3. That shows almost a double pass. That just shows how some of these guys are taking it really easy. Some of them are taking it less easy than others. It's all about how quickly you can adapt in these situations, especially since we didn't have any practice or any experience at all in these conditions this weekend. Trying to take a wider line here, see if I can have better grip on the outside. Of course, staying way off that painted area. I'm trying to anyways. Right now we're just feeling out the track, finding out where the puddles are. Like I said in the intro, turn 6 here is fairly dry. Turn 7 here is fairly dry. Of course, still trying to stay off of the painted curb. And get as good an exit as you can. Trying to see through the spray. And you can see that other car just sort of appearing out of nowhere. It's not as bad in these cars as it is in cars with wings. Like when I raced in Pro Mazda, you could not see anything at all. You could not even see your hands. And the only way to know that you're getting closer and closer to the car in front is that visibility gets worse and worse and worse until hopefully you see a flash of them or something before you run into the back of them. But with these cars it's a little bit better because they don't have a diffuser sucking the car up off the ground. As we're trying to stay off the dry line here, hopefully there's more grip on the outside. Once you get through the apex here in turn 1 up sort of to the uphill, it gets a lot better. I think I realized that aside from the puddle there, you can see coming over the crest, going up the hill into turn 2, if you stay to the right, there's a good amount of grip there. And here through the S's, there's not a whole lot of place to go to stay off the dry line. You just kind of have to take it gingerly. I believe this is Christian Laldas here that we're catching up to fairly quickly. A little bit of power oversteer. Staying nice and easy on the brakes. So one of the things that I complained about a lot last year was that I was having too much brake bias, or too much rear brake bias rather. And in the dry, that's not ideal, but in the wet like this, you actually want it a little bit. You want the brake bias set a little bit more towards the rear. You can see how sketchy turn 12 is there. But because you're not on the brakes as hard in the wet as you are in the dry, you're not transferring as much momentum or as much weight to the front wheels, so you want to dial the brake bias back a little bit. So we haven't fixed it yet, but I think in these conditions it's helping me out a little bit. Another thing that we did before the race was we disconnected the front and rear anti-roll bars, which helps soften the car up a bit. Ideally, we would have raised the car up a little bit. Frankly, I'm not really sure what that does, but that's what everyone tells me to do. And then also, if you want to put a full wet setup on it, you would use softer springs and probably softer damper settings. So you can see that, if you heard just now, I got my outside rear tire up onto that paint, and the revs went way up. That's what happens. It just takes a little bit as I carry a little too much speed into turn 6. There's Ryan Bjork here coming up. Hopefully we can get around him this lap. But yeah, so with the rain setup, you basically want to soften the car up. We put higher tire temperature, or higher tire pressures as well, since there's not as much heat buildup. They're not going to create as much pressure, and it also actually helps open up the tread blocks a little bit. So you get more water displacement with the treads in the tire. So we weren't able to we haven't messed with the springs or the shocks at all, but we did disconnect the anti-roll bars, which helped a lot. And we were able to use higher tire pressures. You can see, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but there's that concrete patch that once I get onto that, the car loses a lot of grip. And I was going through the turn and going through it and trying to figure out why the car was losing so much grip there, because it's not a really good spot to lose grip. And I eventually figured out that there's a concrete patch there, and concrete, when it's wet, has a lot less grip than asphalt does. So I eventually, after I figure that out, you'll see me start experimenting with lines. Do you want to stay to the outside of it? Do you want to stay to the inside? If you stay to the outside, you'll be able to take a wider arc around 12, which helps you get to power sooner. But the downside is that the concrete patch is close to the outside. So there's a very narrow gap between the concrete and the edge of the track that you can go through. So you risk putting a tire on the grass, which if you do that, it's game over. As you can see, I make the same mistake in turn 6. I think I'm falling into the trap that I feel like it's drier there than it is on the rest of the track, so I can go a little bit faster. It's a big power slide. It's a lot of fun, but it's not really what you want. So hopefully I can tame it down a little bit. You can tell that I'm feeling more and more comfortable with every lap in these conditions. I'm feeling more confident that, if I get over the limit just a little bit, the car is not going to fly off of the surface, that I can actually control it. I think also it's better to take second through turn 12 in these conditions. Of course, it's flat out in 4th gear in the dry. And like I said during the yellow flag, one of the things I really like about racing in the rain is that you have to be constantly engaged. You're constantly evaluating the track conditions, taking mental notes every lap of where puddles are, if they're, if you can drive through them, or if there's more grip somewhere else. And it's Scott Rubenzer, I believe, that just ran through the paint. I can't imagine that was the best way to go through it. But we're gaining on him pretty dramatically, so hopefully we can catch him and pass him as well. I think another difference this season is that I feel a lot more confident recognizing the cars that are around me, so hopefully I'll be able to use the other drivers' names a lot more. Most people are in the same cars that they were in last year, aside from, of course, the new drivers. Everyone's using similar paint schemes. And Scott Rubenzer dates a little bit too deep. Slides off. It's so easy to do that. So, of course, it's possible that he gathered it back up, but it's also possible that he got stranded in the gravel. If we see a full course yellow come out soon, then we'll know which one happened there. No full course yellow yet, so let's keep pushing. I think we found a comfortable rhythm now. We're familiar with the track conditions by now. And I think with every lap, they're getting a little bit better. Of course, you can see the sun is out, and there's blue sky. So the track is drying out, but not very quickly. There was a lot of rain in the morning, so a lot of the channels for water to flow out of or to drain out of are pretty backed up. Still no full course yellow, so we're continuing to try to press on and catch the next car. It's nice to get a free position there when Scott Rubenzer spun off. And there you can see the full course yellow is finally out. And he's still stranded there, yeah. So Scott Rubenzer spun right in front of us and is stuck in the gravel, and the full course yellow is out. And so we're 11 laps into this race, and it's going to take a few laps to clean him up. And so it's going to be a 1-lap shootout to the end of the race. So let's fast forward to take the green, and let's see how we do on that last lap. So coming out of 10B to take the green and white flag together. Hopefully we can make some kind of a better start than we have in the past in this race. Let's see if we can get this guy on the jump. Let's finally have some sun, and we have a good view of the new tower being built here at Road Atlanta. Not a great start, but at least we didn't get overtaken. Like I said, it's difficult to keep keep sight on the car in front of you and the green flag. Now you can see the track is not really dried out, but the sun is out, so it kind of looks like it has. But of course, it's still very wet. And at this point, I didn't actually know that this was the last lap, so I'm still trying to get back into a rhythm and hopefully pick off some of the cars. Assuming that we had a couple laps at least. But as we come around this lap, we get the checkered flag. So this is the last lap. I might have been a bit more aggressive if I had known that, but again, I might not have, because we're doing pretty well. I'm feeling pretty good. And so kind of just want to put this one in the bank. This is Burton August. We get a good exit, and he misses a shift, so that puts us in a good position. Hopefully, it's such a long straightaway that he can get back into my draft. And actually, I was keeping an eye on him in the mirror. He never actually does get back into my draft. But once we get up into the higher gears, he actually has such a dramatic power advantage over me. You can't see him. Well, now you can. That he was actually just able to, with pure power, just able to get in front of me. Well before we got into the braking zone. So we have a new engine. I think it's a little bit concerning that we're somehow still not quite competitive. These race prep cars are really fast. And there's the checkered flag. So we bring it home in 7th, with Josh Green taking the win ahead of Jonathan Koitik and Misha Goikberg. Ayrton Nori actually finished 3rd on the track, but he was disqualified due to his car being out of compliance. I tend to assume they mean that was underweight, because Ayrton Nori is a fairly small guy. So I'm sure they were running ballast, and it's probably easy to misjudge how much fuel you're going to use and come in underweight. So he'll be back for race 2, starting in last place. But I'm really happy with my performance. I think I did fairly well adapting to the conditions, coming back from almost last to finish 7th, finish 8th on the track, but 7th overall. It's a fairly good result. Looking at the championship standings, since they are this is our first race of the season, so they're going to be identical. I think they give points out for the fastest lap, but I did not factor that into this calculation. So I'll be sure to do that in the future. So we'll be back with race 2. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you later.